The definition of the American dream can be summed up in 2 words: Vic Firth. Considered to be one of the greatest timpanists ever, Vic Firth, the man, served 50 years as the principal timpanist for the Boston Symphony. In addition, his reputation as a high-class educator was solidified while serving as head of the percussion department at the New England Conservatory of Music and Tanglewood Music Center. For most, having accomplished 2 distinguished careers in one lifetime would have been more than enough. For Vic, however, out of these 2 successes, a third would emerge. In 1963, his need and desire to find the right sticks and mallets to perform with resulted in the spark that would grow into the world's largest drumstick company today. Some call it fate, others claim luck. But if you ask Vic, he'll tell you that the harder he worked, the luckier he became.
Music, whether performing, teaching, or simply listening, has been one of the highlights of my life. Creating the perfect sticks and mallets has also been a great challenge and a great adventure. I wouldn't have missed it for the world.
At Vic Firth, we believe a drumstick is not just 2 pieces of wood used to hit instruments with. They are fine instruments in and of themselves, designed to help extend the percussionist's hands and fill the gap between musician and instrument. Throughout this program, we will give you a unique and inside look into the world of Vic Firth, a world that specializes and takes great pride in creating the perfect pair for every musical need.
When I got into making drumsticks and looked around and saw what was available, I felt that I could greatly improve on the products that were available for drummers to play. That was the beginning concept and the motivation to start making sticks for myself.
You know, I really love companies that start in the basement with one guy, with one idea. You know, some of the greatest companies in the world have started like that. I just like it when someone thinks, the thing I want doesn't exist, so I'm going to make it the way that I want it. He did it because he felt the other sticks around at the time just weren't doing it for him.
I've always been a dreamer for perfection in anything I ever did, whether it's play music, ski, hunt, fish, whatever. There was a deep passion for success and achievement.
But to know that one of the world's best percussionists is right behind it, that's a very secure feeling, isn't it?
See, a lot of people think a drumstick is just a drumstick. But what they don't realize is that there's a lot of science that goes into manufacturing a super quality drumstick.
Everyone at Vic Firth feels it is vital to maintain, develop, and foster strong relationships with organizations that specialize in the science of wood. A few of these organizations we work with on a regular basis are the Forest Products Society, the Wood Products Manufacturers Association, Maine Wood Products Association. In addition, there is a close working relationship with the University of Maine Wood Science Department. Their professors are in constant contact with us concerning the latest advances in wood science and processing methods.
It amazes me that Vic Firth has gone so far in creating relationships with wood experts to ensure the quality of their product. They're not just comfortable with what they know. They're trying to push themselves as a company, and the fact that they're that serious about the science of wood should tell you something.
The reason there are so many steps is to maintain the manufacturing standard.
The manufacturing process is so smartly figured out, like that it's economically sustainable.
We found that more could be done with greater strategies of understanding the properties of wood, how wood responds to a machine, how wood responds to different temperature, different humidity, different readings that nature puts on wood.
I would say the attention which is paid to detail, the commitment to really produce an excellent product.
And the more we learn, the more complicated and complex the system becomes, but the results also become much greater.
There's really not much that I could think of, like, they didn't think about that. But yes, it's kind of like I didn't find any gaps or loopholes, and I'm a very skeptic person, so I'm always looking at, wait a minute, but at that point I'm going to say, wow, this is a pretty perfect instrument.
There are many things about the way we make drumsticks that separate us from the drumstick manufacturers. However, none are as important as the first 6 steps.
Implementing these 6 steps allows Vic Firth to focus on the wood from the green stage all the way through to the end. They have 100% control of their product through the entire process. And in today's business environment, that's a really impressive accomplishment.
These steps to excellence include: Step 1. Vic Firth purchases green squares and boards. Step 2. Boards are cut into squares using our on-site sawmill. Step 3. Exacting drying process is carried out in on-site kilns. Step 4. The squares are molded into smaller squares. Step 5. The smaller squares are reduced to dowels and inspected. Step 6. The dowels are reduced again in a special sander. Let's now explore each step.
Vic purchases green squares and boards.
Wood that is cut from a live tree and has not been dried is referred to as green squares. In this state, the wood is carrying a very high percentage of weight due to water, which is known as moisture content.
And you can't forget that this is a living thing that you're making this drumstick out of.
When the process begins, there's roughly 50% moisture content.
It hasn't been processed. The moisture is still there. Why? Because it gives Vic Firth the option to adjust that moisture content.
There's 2 different kinds of moisture, the moisture outside of the cell and the moisture inside of the cell.
The moisture found outside and between the cells is called free water.
And the moisture found inside the cells is referred to as bound water.
Moisture within a piece of wood is going to do what it wants to do unless you manage that. And the only way that a drumstick manufacturer can know with 100% certainty is to do the kiln drying themselves.
It starts with buying the right raw materials. The suppliers have to meet a rigorous specification for that wood before it could even be considered.
Hickory has 14 different species. That's a lot of different varieties for one type of wood. Only 4 of those 14 are ideal for stick making. So it really comes down to where the wood is grown.
Hickory is only found in the United States, and the best hickory is found in the southern U.S., and hence this is where Vic Firth gets all its wood.
The maple wood is coming from up north in Canada.
R&D is very extensive.
When you think about a drumstick, you're like, how much can possibly be involved in this drumstick? Like, I mean, I get it. They cut down a piece of wood, they put it in, they spin it down, it looks like a stick, stamp your name on it, and boom.
And when we work on a simple thing as a drumstick, a new stick, we spend many hours reshaping, redesigning, retesting till we get the perfect feel, either for us or for the artist that we're designing it for.
These guys are artists. I mean, they are artists. They're as involved in the development and understanding about what they're doing as we are, you know, playing the instrument with the sticks. I mean, I was absolutely blown away. I mean, I had no idea that it was that involved and that they were that precise and on top of all of the different factors involved to make the best stick in the world.
A lot of other companies are just taking a dowel, they buy a dowel, and then they put it on a lathe.
To have better control of the wood from the very beginning is important. So at Vic Firth, we take the responsibility to cut our own wood.
What impressed me was how every detail was taken care of, from the wood coming in to actual controlling of cutting the stock.
The boards are cut into squares using an on-site mill.
So the wood's cut into 17-inch long squares.
Anything else that comes out of there defective is eliminated.
What wood is not being used, it's being recycled.
As the process moves forward, the next 4 steps are vital, as they are the very foundation in which the perfect Vic Firth stick is created. It's important to remember that in the Vic Firth manufacturing method, the key to the straightness of a stick begins with precise control of the drying cycle.
Wood is a pretty inconsistent thing, and they've gone through the process of finding out what factors, first off, lead to the stick not being straight.
Before you even start to give a shape to like the wood, and to extract that moisture, and evidently they didn't leave a stone unturned to figure out what the best way it is to achieve that.
The kiln drying is the only way that the folks at the factory can know with certainty that the sticks are going to come out straight and remain straight, because the moisture content is so specifically kind of controlled and achieved.
The imperfections are dried out of the wood. Really, I never knew that was the way that the Vic Firth sticks never warp. I mean, I've never ever seen a stick from this company, you know, not have perfect profile and a perfect straightness to the profile. And that goes from the dryness of how they get that moisture out of the wood.
From day one of my stick making adventure, if they weren't straight, they were not branded Vic Firth, and they became firewood for my fireplace.
How many times have you gone to a drum shop and you're sitting there rolling sticks along the counter?
It's basically a defective stick if it's warped and it's not straight in the profile.
If you've ever tried to play with a warped stick, it's really uncomfortable.
A drumstick should be straight, and not like a banana.
But if your sticks are warped like a banana, you got problems.
Back then, you know, when I had to get sticks to play For a gig, I had to roll them.
I mean, man, I rolled some sticks that are literally won't roll. They're so crooked they won't roll on the glass.
I've picked up other sticks before and had, you know, an odd bow in it, and it's as simple as like it hits the drum before I think the drum's supposed to be hit with my body, because it's actually pointing down.
That the companies, I hate to say it, are not consistent when it comes to sticks. And it's hard to be consistent. It's not because they don't want to. I really think it's because they don't know how to do it.
All of those things that you had to do, you know, you might have to go through 20 pairs of in a music store to come up with 2 or 3 that you could use.
With Vic Firth, I don't really need to do that.
And Vic Firth has figured out that this whole system on how that's supposed to be done.
And if you start to play with Vic Firth sticks all the time, like I have been, anything else just doesn't even feel right in your hands. It gives you the creeps to play anything else.
I just always ended up with Vic Sticks because they were straighter.
I never have a stick that's not straight, and I have minimal breakage.
So to be honest with you, I haven't rolled sticks in years because with Vic Firth sticks, I know they're going to be straight.
I know they're reliable. I know I don't have to like fish for sticks like 30 times in a show.
Straight sticks are important because that's really, to me, I mean, that's just the way that they're supposed to be, especially in marching percussion.
You got to have straight sticks.
Who wants to play with a warped stick?
Who the heck wants to play with an unstraight stick? The straightness of a stick is very important. I don't know, anybody who doesn't want to play with a straight stick, they got to be not straight themselves. I mean, that's bizarre. You want your stick to be straight. I mean, it's hard enough that we're humans and we're not perfect, but at least make your tools perfect, you know?
Last thing you want to do is get up in front of a festival of 40,000 people, 1, 2, 3, 4, smack, and then you're playing something that feels like a wobbly wet noodle.
You can go into a store and you can check all the other different sticks, roll them, play them on a pad, feel the texture of the stick. I think that's very important, that the stick feels good and that it's straight.
I mean, I challenge any percussionist to go out and pick up sticks from different companies and roll them and see how straight they are.
I would challenge anybody, anytime, to go and find a best matching pair other than Vic Firth's, you know, concerning pitch, weight, and everything. Vic Firth are the best.
Take someone else's sticks out and give them a roll. That's all I got to say. Check it out. Seriously. If it's bobbling, you don't want those. Guess what? You're not going to find them with Vic sticks. It's just the process is eliminated before they get out of the door.
But I think it would be interesting to maybe pull out sticks of another company and roll them and see if you find the same thing. Let me know what you find.
The Vic Sticks will come out the winner every time.
I mean, for me, that's kind of like a no-brainer.
I gotta say, Vic Firth, with these sticks, I never even worry about it. When I first got the stick, I used to roll them. Every stick was fine.
And see if you can find any other brand that matches the straightness, the evenness, and the quality of wood right out of the wrapper. They do it for you so that you don't have to do it in the store. See if you can find any other brand that does that. I don't think you will.
But roll them and then compare. Go ahead, compare them to other people's sticks and see if they're straight.
The perfect pair of sticks would just roll on by. It's just like we passing the competition. You know, y'all stuck, we rolling on by. Y'all stuck, we rolling on by. So that's our swagger, we roll. You know what I mean? Vic Firth swagger is rolling, we rolling.
Roll the sticks on the counter, check to see if they're straight or if they're like a banana.
Like, I never have to do that anymore. I know they're going to be straight, and that makes a huge difference.
gain better knowledge of the entire process, we will explore steps 3 through 6 in more detail.
After he gets the green squares and boards, and cuts the boards into squares, then the drying process starts, and it's done with on-site kilns.
When the wood's moisture content changes, it causes the cell walls to expand with moisture gain or contract with moisture loss. When this happens, the finished drumstick can warp and go out of round.
As the moisture content changes, in the wood, the cells actually move in the wood, and that's what causes the stick to warp.
If the wood is not kiln dried correctly, it can lead to stress in the wood, which is pent-up force caused by uneven moisture content. When stress-bound wood is cut, the forces are unbalanced, causing the square, dowel, or stick to bow.
The kiln and the fans and the drying process and how the length of time that it takes to do that is really important, because if it wasn't done the way they do it, the sticks wouldn't be straight.
And I think that the investments that the company has made to make our sticks, you can feel it right when you pick up the stick. It's just obvious that these sticks are better than everything else out there.
They actually built their own kilns to make sure that the drying process is done correctly and those sticks come out the way they're supposed to come out.
Vic has wood scientists who know how to work with the properties of wood as opposed to against them.
You're kind of like a woodurgist, but a wood specialist who checks the moisture of that batch that's in the kilns.
The idea is to use their knowledge to work with the wood, not against it.
So we got to walk into the kilns today, and I was in there for, the half a minute, and it's like a sauna. It's like a sauna that is just this heated room that is drying out the wood at a very controlled, with a very controlled process.
Most kilns are designed to get the wood in and out as quick as possible for profit. But Vic's kilns are designed to minimize the stress on the wood and control the consistency and the moisture content.
This is a process and a recipe that they came up with their own that has fine-tuned this process and made the quality even better. And they've discovered this through years of experimentation.
Most kilns are set up to produce various wood products where the stress is not a top priority. With drumsticks, however, this is of the utmost importance.
When that wood comes in, you want to be in control of getting it right.
Buying wood from a third party doesn't guarantee the perfection that Vic Firth requires. They've spoken with commercial kiln companies and determined that they wouldn't want to leave something as important up to a third party, and therefore they've invested in their own on-site kilns.
I would say there are 4 main points to our success. Number 1, we strive to maintain the highest quality humanly possible. Number 2, we are always creating innovative and imaginative products. Number 3, we deliver the product within 24 to 48 hours. We guarantee the product to be what we say it is.
I tried everything that was out there, and I always, returned back to Vic because they just felt better. They were more reliable.
I've always felt that whatever the challenges were, I could meet them and do better.
I like to work with people that pay attention to detail, that are the best at what they do, and that are reliable and competent at what they do.
Whatever I accomplish and whatever I do, I always set standards for myself that are extremely high.
That's why I'm with Vic.
The kiln drying process breaks down into the following steps.
We were taken to see the kiln. where these humongous pallets of, I believe they're 17-inch long, 1-inch squares. About this long and about like that, but they're square. And the room was quite enormous.
The squares of wood are stacked specifically for the drying process.
This particular stacking methodology leaves small gaps in between each piece and each layer of wood. This provides clear paths around each stick so the air can pass through all the pallets and dry each piece evenly.
In the kiln, there are rows of fans that consistently make the air flow evenly through the stacks of wood.
Heating coils control the temperature of the air, and steam is injected to control the humidity. The temperature and humidity are adjusted so that the moisture content of the air is lower than the moisture content of the wood in the kiln. As the air passes through the stacks of wood, moisture migrates out of the wood into the air. A portion of the now wet air is forced out of the kiln and is replaced by drier outside air.
So in the kilns, the wood needs to dry in a uniform way in every direction, so the fans that are blowing the air around inside the kilns get changed every 4 hours. So it's so important to control the moisture content. Inside the kiln, the temperature comes up, the humidity goes down, and there's a little guy goes in there with a moisture meter and he checks it to make sure it's on schedule.
We dry the wood very slowly to extract the moisture evenly from the wood.
And the whole idea is to just get the level of moisture in the wood down to that optimum level. I believe sticks are in there somewhere between 10 and 12 days.
The beginning of the kiln cycle gets rid of the free water. This actually reduces the moisture content by about 25%.
The bound water found within the cell walls begins to extract under the fiber saturation point, and the wood begins to shrink.
It's where you get to the bound water, the water inside the cells, and the stick actually begins to shrink. Then you lose somewhere about 10% of the size of the stick.
When the 4x4x4 foot pallets enter the kiln, they are tightly bound. Upon exiting the kiln, the bands are loose due to the several inches of height lost during the kiln process.
So as far as the moisture and maintaining the moisture goes, there's actually a guy whose job it is to check the moisture.
The kiln operator uses the moisture meter to measure the moisture content of samples taken from various places within the kiln.
Depending on the results, the operator adjusts his kiln schedule to make sure that the wood is dried perfectly.
And he does this by putting a gauge into one of the sticks, one of the planks, while it's still in the kiln, and he checks that.
Moisture meters work by measuring the electrical resistance between two metal prongs that are driven into a piece of wood. The lower the moisture content, the higher the resistance. To give precise measurements, the meter is programmed with the moisture to resistance curve for a specific species of wood and for the wood temperature.
The kiln operator will also take squares from the kiln to test their stress level. He'll cut them lengthwise with a bandsaw to produce a cluster of thin squares.
If it warps out or if it does anything tweaky, then they know that that batch of wood needs to stay in the kiln for a while.
The optimal amount of moisture that you would want in a hickory stick would be between 6 and 8%.
A level of 6 to 8% is consistent with average indoor conditions, thereby minimizing any chance for dimensional change in the wood due to loss or gain of moisture.
6 to 8% is the same percentage used for fine furniture. This is the reason why on a hot, humid day, fine furniture drawers don't stick, whereas cheaply made furniture drawers will stick. And this is the reason why Vic Firth's kiln drying process is using the same moisture content percentage.
It should be noted that all drumsticks, regardless of their moisture content at the time they're manufactured, will adjust to match the relative humidity of the environment in which they're used.
The stick moisture content will adapt to the environment that it's in.
Average indoor moisture content is around 6 to 8%. Other drumstick manufacturers release sticks that are 12%. Now, of course, they need to adjust to the 6 to 8%, and that's the time when they could warp. But Vic Firth sticks are released at 6 to 8% moisture content.
If another manufacturer makes a stick from wood using a higher moisture content, the stick will dry out fairly quickly until it matches its environment. In the process, the wood will shrink and the stick will go out of round and bow.
Other companies, they use like 10 to 12% moisture content.
Some people say that the moisture content in a drumstick should match the same as other striking tools, such as an axe. I don't know about you, but I don't use the axe to play the drums. I keep that outside in the shed.
They do this because it's much easier to machine the wood with that higher level of moisture, especially using conventional back knife lathes.
When it dries out, the problem that you have is that it warps. Now with Vic Firth sticks, we only use 6 to 8% of moisture content, and we also use grinders, so it's less warpage.
With grinders like Vic Firth uses, you can operate at the lower moisture content, getting good yield at higher quality without any warped or banana sticks.
And that's, you know, the type of quality that I look to, because inconsistent sticks can affect the dynamic and the sound of my drumming.
One last but very important point on our kilns. Our kilns are entirely fueled by the waste from other parts of our factory. Sawdust from the machinery. Wood whose quality is not suitable for drumsticks. All of it is burned to fuel the kilns. We proudly are an environmentally friendly, no-waste company. In fact, we are dependent on our waste to not only provide steam for the kiln, but to heat the plant.
The thing that impressed me the most, though, and I gotta say from an ecological standpoint, was the reusage of all the different elements. So there's very little waste, and that made me extremely happy. And it also has actually given me more excitement about the product. I think as a percussionist, when you endorse Vic Firth, it's a privilege, really.
They eliminate wood that they can tell is not going to be good for what they need. And that wood that they eliminate is used to heat the plant, and so there's no waste. They use everything.
Wood that doesn't make the cut to be a drumstick is used to enable the manufacturing process of heating the oven to dry the other pieces of wood. If the factory can't use it, then Vic Firth puts it all in a big truck and sends it to another plant, and they turn the sawdust into wood pellets for home heating, as opposed to just dumping it all down the drain and making it some other city's problem. So it's really commendable.
We're talking, for those of you guys that are super greenies, that's as super as you can get. You know, no waste. And it makes perfect sense. Especially, you got to have something to heat the kiln, and something, you know, to heat the factory, especially during the winter. So, bingo, there it is. You gotta love it.
You just do it because it proves that good ecology is good business. Sustainability really is in everyone's interest.
It makes it that much more exciting and proud to be involved with the company.
And we're 45, 50 minutes into it, and then we finally get to the point where we're filing down this raw material.
The square is made smaller by going into a machine where there are 6 planing heads.
The first 2 planing heads cut 2 reference faces on the stick. Then all 4 faces are cut to create a uniform size.
So it goes through a few stages of becoming a little smaller and a little more refined, where they see some of the qualities of the wood and then eliminate some of the problem wood.
When the square block transforms into the round cylindrical kind of stick. I thought it was very interesting.
The first process in making the square round is they put the square into this, it's like a round plane or something that cuts it perfectly all the way around.
The square is fed through the center of a cutting head, reducing the square to a dowel.
After the square becomes a dowel, it goes through another inspection process, and it goes through a physical inspection process, and also they put everything on a conveyor belt, and it's looked at according to weight and straightness, and anything that doesn't meet the weight and straightness criteria is thrown out. Vic uses a laser that determines the straightness of the stick.
A laser displacement sensor measures the distance down to a target which rests on the stick as it's rotated. As the target moves, the sensor finds the highest and lowest readings. That gives the measurement of the straightness of the dowel within thousandths of an inch. Every dowel is measured for straightness and is then sorted into one of two categories. Dowels that are very warped are burned in the boiler. Dowels that fall somewhere in between proceed to an intermediate operation to be sanded to correct any issues, then are sent to grinding.
Quality and the highest standards of manufacturing and design and comfort for the player using the sticks has been the prime reason for what we try to accomplish in development.
The story of Vic Firth drumsticks is one of those happy stories where it's just the quality keeps getting better. In an age when so many other things seem to be in decline, here's a product that is about as natural and old school as can be, a wooden drumstick, and yet made to the finest tolerances to ensure the best possible playing experience for a drummer.
I wish there were shortcuts, and there are, but something has to be sacrificed, and I absolutely refuse to shortcut quality.
The user is guaranteed the best possible pair of drumsticks. As Dave was saying, you can always try to improve the efficiency of a manufacturing process so as to maximize profits for a company, but he said for the life of him he couldn't at this point think of a better way to make a drumstick, and I think he may be right. It seems like it's perfection really to that nth degree.
Another step that Vic Firth does is the dowel sanding.
And then it's put into a sander, and which smooths it down to the next level where the wood can be worked on to make the shape of the stick.
They go through this sanding process where they're kind of held in place by this mechanism that spins really quickly, and it moves down a conveyor, and it eventually kind of passes through a high-speed sanding belt. The first part of the dowel that comes in contact with this sanding belt are the high points of the dowel. So they kind of get sanded off, and then the entire dowel passes through, and all of it evenly gets sanded, which in turn reduces the dowel to a smaller size, so it's kind of getting closer to what a drumstick can be made from, and it also smooths out the stick.
Those 4 steps to slowly reduce the size of the wood are very important, and Vic takes it very seriously.
And that means something. It's not like you're looking down the stick going, oh wow, look, is this thing straight? No, it's like you got 1, you got 2, you got 3, you got 4. There's a lot of steps to do that, and obviously that's important for the company.
There's no stick that has the consistency and high level of manufacturing as a Vic Firth stick.
Vic is that driven to eliminate variation in the warping of these materials, and he's going to control these systems the way that he does. I mean, you're talking about 45 to an hour into the tour. We haven't even gotten to the point where most drumstick companies start.
It was amazing to find out just how much work had gone into the wood source by the Vic team to get the wood into a workable dowel. It's usually at this point that other companies pick up those dowels and the process starts.
I've always admired the saying, you can't stand still. You either go forward or you go backwards.
And that's what I love about the company in general. And Vic Firth, he really cares about what he does, and he has an extreme passion for it.
I prefer to go forward than standing still, much less going backwards.
They're always coming up with great new products and trying to reach new levels.
Innovation has been part of the vocabulary that we could not live without here.
That's why I will always be with Vic Firth. There's no other place to go, no reason to. I'm here.
The dowel inspection really impressed me. Seeing the inspection of each dowel, looking for blemishes, grain characteristics.
Every like 15 minutes they stop and they calibrate, and there's a lot of random auditing and sampling that goes on to make sure that the sticks are coming out the way they're supposed to.
Here, every dowel is categorized and inspected based on a long list of characteristics.
Grain straightness, color, blemishes, any imperfections are all considered.
I think the thing that was very clear there is that the two gentlemen that are in that area are probably the most important people in that manufacturing process, because they're the ones that are really going to determine what wood is going to be used for what sticks.
This inspection results in one of 4 scenarios. A dowel meeting all the specifications is categorized as a Vic white stick. A dowel meeting the standards for all physical properties but has cosmetic issues becomes a Vic color stick that will get finished with an opaque color. A dowel that doesn't meet the Vic standard but is still capable of making a playable drumstick is designated for our economy quality drumstick line called Nova. Everything else goes to the boiler.
I think the step that I really enjoyed the most, probably because I was up close and personal at this particular station, was where the two guys who are sort of examining the grains.
They check the grain of the wood. They decide which is the tip end, which is the butt end by looking at the grain.
Every dowel is positioned so that the straightest grain ends up at the tip of the stick.
I mean, that really surprised me, that the person making those decisions, he's deciding this is where the straightest grains are, so this is going to be where the tip's going to go. And he puts them all in order, and then he decides, well, some of these are going to be colored sticks, and some of these are going to be clear sticks, depending on if there's some coloration in the wood itself.
I guess really almost the learned craftsmanship that these guys demonstrate was really something that I did not expect to see whatsoever, and you can tell they take great care in that process.
I don't like the idea that people work for me. I like to share the thoughts that we work with me, work together. There's something about that spirit that's more my natural instinct.
The whole process of making a Vic Firth drumstick is so elaborate, and the people behind these drumsticks are amazing engineers, people that really love wood, think wood 24 hours a day.
I respect every job that every person does, whatever level they may be working at and whatever level they may be doing. If they do it right, and if they show excitement and pleasure out of accomplishment, these are the traits that I look for in people.
You know, a lot of us drummers, sometimes we have no idea the hard work and effort that goes into making a pair of drumsticks. And I can tell you, Vic Firth has the best people in the industry.
When I first saw that each stick had its own mold, I couldn't believe, I always thought it was a lathe, or, you know, I never really thought through the process of how the design was, you know, put onto the stick.
The grinding process, where the sticks are shaped by the use of these grindstones versus being turned on a lathe and cut with a knife. That was the most impressive part of the tour for me.
Other manufacturers use traditional wood turning to shape their sticks. Here at Vic Firth, our method is far superior to that.
The process where a stick is turned on a lathe and cut by a knife always struck me as being one where there was a lot of potential for tolerances getting kind of wide.
The blade's going to get more dull as it goes on, and the tolerances are going to change.
The grinding process is a much more consistent and reliable way to produce the different sticks without having to resort to the lathing against a blade.
When you're lathing a stick like that, and depending on how much it's cutting off at one given time, like, it's really dramatically affecting, like, the stress on the stick itself. So, I mean, it can break easier, it can snap easier.
You're putting less stress on the wood, and as you would, as opposed to the lathe, which makes it a way better quality product at the end of the day.
If you're not maintaining that blade the way that it needs to be maintained, from what I understand, then that starts to produce very irregular cuts and sticks as a result.
So that's the thing about the back knives, is that they have to be sharpened all the time.
The stone mold is a much more accurate way to get the exact shape of the stick without chipping off extra pieces of wood or working with a blade that's going to get dull over time and cause a lot of inconsistencies in the stick. So it seems to be the most refined way to develop a very beautiful instrument.
The plunge grinder is where the stick comes alive, and gets their own identity, the first one.
The final shape of the drumstick is produced by the action of two plunge grinders. In plunge grinding, a 10-inch wide grinding wheel is form-dressed to the exact shape of the part to be produced. The dowel is located in front of the rapidly turning grinding wheel. A second regulating wheel rotates the wood and presses it into the grinding wheel, which causes the shape to be ground into the stick.
So the regulating wheel spins the stick, the stone mold spins against it, and it grinds the stick into what it is, as opposed to taking the stick and spinning it against a blade.
It is in the second grinding process where the back 10 inches, including the butt end of the stick, are formed.
The motion of the regulating wheel, and thus the diameter of the stick, is precisely controlled and measured in thousandths of an inch.
Consistency is really the most important thing when you're dealing with something like drumsticks. And, for a professional musician, I mean, consistency is the thing that separates the men from the boys, or the good players from the great players, or vice versa. And you would be hard pressed to achieve that consistency without having consistent tools.
Vic shapes the sticks for the grinding stone, and that works better than traditional lathes that could chip or cause imperfections or inaccuracies in the wood.
Minor grain variation, which would be perfectly acceptable from a quality and strength standpoint, causes the cutting knife to tear the surface of the wood, resulting in rejected product.
Traditional turning produces poor surface quality unless the grain of the wood is extremely straight. This is exceptionally true with hickory, where it's tough and durable.
So some companies have got higher moisture content because when they're using knives cutting the wood, it's easier to work with. And Vic, which is a bad thing, because when you hit a knot, big chunks of wood fly off. But Vic did it the clever way by grinding it on a stone.
I think it's the respect we show the artistry, the artist, and the attempts to improve and constantly make a musical instrument that makes him sound better musically, makes his performance easier.
So when he started making sticks, I was into trying them out, and they're just like everything else he does. They're a high quality. He has very, very high standards, and the sticks came out that way.
It's a compliment to me and the company that I have had so many great players over the years.
My whole association with Vic Firth is personal to start with, because I was a student of his when I was, I guess I'd consider a teenager. When he started to make rock and roll sticks, you know, he actually hand-delivered them to me. I played in Portland, Maine with John Mellencamp in 1981 or 82, and he hand-delivered them.
After the sticks have had the back 10 inches shaped in the grinder, they are reversed and placed in the feeder of the second grinder. The grinding wheel in this machine has been dressed to the shape of the tip end of the stick. The same in-feed grinding process that produced the butt end of the stick is repeated in the second grinder, with the two patterns overlapping and blending out in the middle of the stick.
The entire grinding process is carried out under a water bath.
As it goes into the grinder, it's being hit with water from all sides so that it doesn't get overheated and doesn't burn up, and it helps also smooth out the grinding process so the stick comes out nice and smooth.
The water carries away the fine sawdust from the grinder, cools the stick, and also allows the grinder to not become clogged.
The water only penetrates the surface of the wood to a very small depth. After the sticks are removed from the grinder, they are placed in trays in front of large air-circulating fans to quickly dry off. No dimensional changes are introduced, and no moisture content changes.
I actually had a chance to take a few of the sticks and put into the drying rack, and it's just amazing to see a piece of me being produced right in front of me. It's overwhelming.
When the stick is finished in the grinding process, it's ready to go to the final part, which is the lacquering and the labelling. But other manufacturers who use knife turning have to sand off the turning points, and at that point you could, slightly alter the stick.
The stone mold, I think about this size, almost looks like a hollowed out clay pot. That was actually a very, very touching moment to see everybody's specific mold.
Basically, I just thought it was so amazing, like, oh man, I got my own piece of rock? No, I have my own mold. So I just thought that was incredible.
I stepped away from those machines and away from the tour group, and I went to look at where all the other grindstones are stored, and I was amazed by the number of them at what I'm sure is a considerable expense. The number of those that have been made, and I had a nice moment finding mine. I saw it on, it's bin number 41 and 42, and wow. And that would be the second signature stick model, the ride stick.
When I saw the mold, it was very impressive to see all the different designs, and then to see the process of how the stick went through that to the final stages. Very impressive.
Now I'm thinking, how long is it going to take to grind my stick into the proper profile? And at these high-speed machines, it's amazing how quickly those sticks are cut, and the smoothness of how that profile was cut.
But then you see in the machine that they put it in, and how the process of the stick going in and getting cut up so fast, and whatever the RPMs are and everything, it was fantastic. So it's something, like I said, it's something to see.
It's got to be unprecedented from the variation of how a lathe would jam into a stick, because this process was smooth all the way through, and when you look at the stick and what comes out in the final process, I have to believe that's a big part of how the consistency of the stick is made.
As they're doing it, my schematic is up there so everybody can see exactly what they're making, and they can make sure that that what's coming out of the grinder.
You don't think about any of this as the person who's actually using this product, the fact that it has to go through so many different steps to get to it, and then ultimately, right, so how does your stick ultimately get shaped once it's gone from a giant wooden board to a 17-inch long, 1-inch square piece of wood, to a dowel, to a smaller dowel, and then ultimately to your stick with your taper, with your tip, your shoulder size, and there it was.
I never want nobody to say to me, why are your sticks $5 or $6 anymore? Because I seen the process, and the process is way, way, way worth more than $5 or $6. So don't ask that question. Don't even ask that question. Just buy it, because you know that the whole process is a very long, it's long and tedious at the same time, but there's so many stages of it that it'll just blow you away if you really knew. So everybody out there that goes by any Vic Firth stick, it's a lot of love that goes into it.
My background is such that I'm not just a manufacturer. I played professionally 50 years in the Boston Symphony as timpanist. Before that, I started out as a jazz drummer with a 16-piece band.
I don't think too many stick manufacturers can say, oh yeah, I used to play for 30 years, 20 years, I played this type of music, I played that type of music, and then I started making the sticks.
I've played on both sides of the musical genres and understand the problems of the player.
And he's good at this because he's been in the field playing as a player.
I think I am equipped to find solutions to their problems, having been there at one time myself.
Vic has been in the game, so he knows how to make the product right. So the product will service you right because he's been in the game. So he knows the ups and downs, and he's made it a strong product. Like, I go to war with these sticks, you know what I mean?
sticks that have a clear finish are processed in a tumbler.
This is like towards the end of the process. The sticks need to have a finishing material put on them.
So the tumbler is this hexagonal cylinder, and it's kind of like a barrel, and you put the sticks in there.
Solid doors bolted on, and then the sticks are tumbled, I guess, so they're kind of rotating like this. And through the rotation in the tumbler, this finishing material covers the stick.
The objective is to produce a finish that has consistent properties and the prescribed feel in the hand. We want enough finish to uniformly coat the stick, but not so much that the texture of the wood grain is completely buried. The exact formulation of the finish has been developed to produce the desired feel and durability.
This lacquering process makes the stick as nice and smooth and playable.
Another feature that's unique to the Vic Firth production is to be able to dip the sticks in paint so that you can have a colored finish, something that, well, I guess the look of it is as important in a lot of cases for many people as the feel and how it plays and all that. So there is no stone that's unturned.
And when we color the sticks, we don't use tumble finish. The reason being is that, you know, the tips, if they were tumble finish, then it would mark up and leave color all over your cymbals and your heads. So we don't do that here at Vic Firth for that specific reason.
I think Vic was the first one to come up with that, and the system that they use for this is really cool.
It was really neat to see that, you know, they're concerned about that. You know, you want to get the color, you want to get the stick right, but, you know, let's not, you know, mess with the beat.
The fixtures are loaded into a machine which lowers the sticks into a tank until the surface of the finish just reaches the back of the tip. The machine then withdraws the sticks at a controlled rate, leaving a uniform coat of finish on the sticks.
The bead of the stick is put into these fixtures, and I think there's about 25 of them to look like.
But the whole stick gets dipped into the color and slowly gets pulled out, which I'm sure that's the reason that accounts for a perfectly situated color that has the same thickness all the way around, because it's gravity of the earth that pulls the color down, and that is indifferent to any, you know, margins of error.
And once they are dipped in the paint, they are left for hours in the drying room.
When we engage a new artist, or he joins the Vic Firth family, it's more than just becoming part of the team. It's becoming part of a way of life in music.
What really makes Vic Firth a great place to be and a big family is, like, you know, they treat you like a family and not as an artist only. All these years, not a single complaint. Those guys are the best.
We sympathize and understand each other's problems, and we proceed in such a way that we make life easier and more successful from both sides of the family.
It's like a big family, you know, like anything I want, they always hear what I say, and it just helped me out so much. You know, I never expected, you know, from a big company like Vic Firth.
All Vic Firth nylon tip sticks are formed in the grinders with a bulge at the very end of the stick. These sticks are then placed into an injection molding machine. The mold closes around the end of the stick and clamps onto the neck, forming a seal.
The way the machine worked, it gripped it around the top of the stick, pressed it in
around the top of the stick.
Molten nylon is injected into the mold cavity and forms the tip around the enlarged end. The result is a nylon tip that cannot be pulled off of the stick.
When the mold is created for a particular model of stick, the nylon, the molten nylon, is injected into that mold, and now that nylon tip and that stick become one in the process.
The tip becomes part of the stick. You know, it's the stick now, instead of just this thing that's just popped on and you hope for the best.
First of all, unlike a lot of competitors, Vic Firth nylon tips are not glued to the wood. They are actually a part of the mold.
And super glue, you know, is fairly super in its ability to hold things, but one thing super glue doesn't like is trauma, impact trauma, and the number of times that a drumstick will hit a surface, one tune alone, it's a lot of hits.
One of the great things about a Vic Firth nylon tip drumstick is that the tips don't come off. All right, I have myrtleized drumsticks on gigs. The sticks have broken and the nylon tip is still there in perfect condition. It hasn't gone anywhere.
The process is so, you know, soundproof for it not coming off. It's amazing. And again, it's innovative. It's something that was worked out and that was researched.
My experience currently in using the Vic products is these tips don't come off. In the tenor mallets and things that are using various nylon ends to them, they stay intact. And they're not cracking, nor are they slipping off the stick itself.
The way that process is you'll break the stick before that nylon tip will ever come off.
If you take, say like a 5A wood and a 5A nylon tip, there is no difference in the shape of the tip between the wood version of the drumstick and the nylon tip version of the drumstick. They are identical in size, and which means that now balance and the feel of that stick isn't compromised because you simply took away the wood tip and added nylon.
The artists are one of my most enjoyable aspects of this business. Every time there's a group in town and one of our artists is playing, I try to go.
You can see that it's somebody that is always thinking in being organized and correct in every ways, you know. And it's a great respect behind him and behind us towards his products.
I greatly respect them, I admire what they do, and there's a certain spirit of communication there that I will always carry with me with great pride.
Just grab a pair of sticks. He started making that for the players, so the player can really express themselves.
Printer is specially made for Vic Firth.
It can do 2 colors and print 4 sticks at exactly the same time.
To see the 2 colors go on at individual times and then to be put on so specifically and consistently from stick to stick was very impressive.
The transfer mechanism in the machine, the long aluminum bars, is a vacuum fixture that holds the sticks at all times to ensure registration of the 2 images. The image to be printed is etched into a steel plate to a depth of 1/1000th of an inch. An ink cup with a special ceramic seal is positioned over the plate. When the cup strokes over the image and retracts, ink is left only in the recessed image area. When the ink in the etched image is exposed to air, it gives up solvent and the top surface becomes tacky. When the silicone rubber pad presses down against the image, the ink sticks to the pad and is lifted out of the recess. The same process takes place on the rubber pad, with the outer surface of the ink becoming tacky. When the pad is pressed onto the stick, the image transfers.
Gerald's over there just going crazy because this machine is printing perfectly his signature right onto his stick, and it's being stamped at unbelievable clarity.
When they was putting my name actually on the stick, and it goes in 2 steps basically. The red goes on first, and my name, which is the flag, and the 2 dots at the top, that goes on first. And then the machine comes back and puts on the black. So me and Vic was standing there, and it was like, you know, it's so amazing how it looks like these 4 big sponges, and it comes down one big sponge. I mean, all 4 sponges come down and they put the red, and then it comes back again and all 4 sponges come down and they put the black. And it's like, yo, how does it do that so perfectly?
To watch my friend there just having the same, it's like a proud parent seeing your stick being produced with your signature on it, and just an unbelievable experience.
And Vic looked at me and I looked at him, and I was like, man, we just ahead of the game. And he said, I know, we are ahead of the game.
I'm a great admirer of anyone who has artistic talent, be they a poet, a painter, a musician, what have you. The relationship that I have with these people as artists create a certain atmosphere of camaraderie that's most unique.
It's a lovely thing to be able to trust a company to that extent, so that you know that they're always consistent.
First of all, we're friends. And second of all, we're musical friends. And we share the same musical goals, and that's to play and perform at the highest level humanly possible.
Vic owns the company. He's the guy that started it all. It doesn't get better than that, you know?
The process where the sticks are weighed was very fascinating.
Vic Firth is willing and able to advertise our weight specifications and guarantee of matched stick pairs.
Every drumstick goes onto a scale and through a straightness checking station.
The sticks are fed onto a conveyor, which carries them past a scale and straightness checking station.
Now again, the sticks are checked for straightness, using the same techniques they were at the dowel sorting station, and anything that's not straight gets thrown away.
The weights of the dowels are recorded in grams. As the sticks move down the conveyor, they are ejected into bins that represent weight categories of 2-gram increments.
You know, watching this conveyor belt of sticks going down and seeing all these numbers flickering on a computer, weighing every single stick. That was, you know what? That might have been one of the most mind-blowing moments of today's journey.
I had no idea that they were calibrating this down to decimal points. When you watch the sticks come off the conveyor belt, they're being weighed, and then they're sorted into, it's like an assembly line of different measurements of that weight, so that they're fine-tuning and getting the absolute most consistent weight possible out of the stick.
Every stick on that belt, on that machine, the computer memorizes a stick number, whatever, 2015, weights like 43 grams, and it will be shot out. It will exit the transportation belt at the designated hole for 43 grams.
We're talking about separating the weight in the sticks by 2 grams per box and over a very wide range of weight.
As the sticks move down the line, it starts with the lightest, and then they sit down for just a second, and then whatever weight it is, it literally gets poked out into a bin. So if it's a little bit heavier, it'll move on down the line.
A single model of stick is run through the sorter as a batch, which stays together through the remainder of the process.
Even though there's a wide variety of weights available in the particular line, when you get that matched pair of sticks, those weights are going to be perfectly matched to each other. So the end result is you're going to get a perfectly matched pair of sticks.
After being weight sorted, all the bins of the same weight are grouped together for tone pairing.
The idea of guaranteeing a perfectly weighed and balanced pair of sticks seemed to satisfy a natural need for players.
Yeah, the weight is important to me. It's not just the weight, but it's for the amount of vibration. You know, if a stick is too light or isn't dense enough, then when you hit it, you feel too much. You feel too much vibration from the cymbal, the drum. You can feel it coming back. Whereas if the stick is dense, it goes through you, and you can really place it dynamically where you want it, and feel like it's true. Feel like what you're getting back is what you intended.
It's got to be right. It's got to feel right. It's got to be balanced right, and you got to be able to rely on it.
They have to be the same weight, they have to have the same tone, and they have to have the same weight distribution within the stick, so the balance has to be the same.
You want a balanced, equal sound out of each hand.
I notice, differences in weight. I mean, it's the fractions of a gram that I notice when I play. And I never have these issues with Vic.
I think you'll find that Vic Firth overall retains the highest quality. It's definitely the leader in the industry and probably, if not the best stick on the market today.
I can pick out a pair like this pair right here. They feel balanced. I can pick another pair that might be a little lighter, but they still feel balanced. You know, it's not like I never pick a pair from any of the Vic Firth packages I get, where one stick is heavy and one stick's light. You know, they're exactly perfect weight for each other.
There's no stick that's more precisely matched than Vic Firth sticks. So the weight matching and the pitch matching, is absolutely incredible. Makes these sticks, it just gets rid of all that headache.
They were more balanced, and they felt better in my hands.
When you're dealing with an inferior quality drumstick, the brain is incredible. It will make that physical adjustment to even out the tone. But that's not an issue with these sticks. You put them in your hands, not only does it help you, but it actually forces you to improve your technique because finally somebody figured it out.
Sticks need to be balanced accurately, and they need to be weighted accurately.
I can't tell you how many times I've listened to players play and their roll is uneven, their single strokes are uneven, and they're great players. It only takes me going to the sticks and checking for weight and pitch, and usually one of those two are not matched up. So with Vic Sticks, it's nice that both of those qualities are taken into account so that never happens.
It just feels right, and I think it's really super important to pick up a pair of sticks that really fits well in your hand.
If you're buying Vic's sticks, you're getting sticks that were conceived by a great percussionist who knows the importance of weight, length, density, and if anyone is able to understand what's important in terms of, feel and comfort, he does.
What was the point of having straight sticks if they didn't weigh the same, have the same flex, the same moisture content, and identical pitch?
You know, the beginning stages, of course, are impressive with the of the development of the stick with the kiln and the drying and the the water content and getting into all of those details. But when you follow it all the way through to the very end, and they actually are testing the pitch of the stick, the actual resonance of the stick, that I didn't know about. Well, I didn't know about most of it, but especially that. Was particularly impressive.
Vic Firth is willing and able to advertise our tonal specifications and guarantee of every pair being pitch paired. The tone a stick produces can be different depending on the direction in which it's hit relative to the orientation of the grain in the stick. By rotating the stick, we sample both of these potential modes. If there is a difference, it will show on the monitor as a double peak.
So then they put it on another conveyor belt. These are all the same grammage within 2 grams. Put it on another conveyor belt that's got notches, and then this little thing hits it 3 times, beep, 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 and it can tell you the pitch of what that one is.
It looks like a little finger on this conveyor belt that's just tapping 3 times each stick. It's unbelievable because the consistency of that machine tapping is a heck of a lot more consistent than what we were probably doing when we're trying to hear that pitch. And that's happening in every pair that comes out of here. The millions of pairs of sticks that are produced, every one of them goes through these 3 taps out of this little machine, and it's calibrated through a computer, and it's unbelievably consistent.
And there's a microphone that's inside a tube. It's inside a tube so it can keep out all the background sound.
A computer analyzes the sound and produces a frequency spectrum displayed on the screen.
What's very impressive about the pitch pairing is that the stick is rotated as it's repeatedly struck by a hammer. And this is fed into a computer which does a frequency analysis and averages out each stick's fundamental tone.
These different graphics were coming up on the computer screen, and I was curious to find out, so of course I asked some questions. They said, oh yeah, this is after, we matched the weight. This is the actual pitch process that we go through.
Some sticks may have 2 resonances going on.
If the difference between the 2 peaks is higher than a certain value, the stick is rejected.
They'll discard a stick that's got multiple resonances because it's like the stick can't make up its mind where it wants to resonate. It'll probably feel weird in your hand, so that stick is eliminated.
The sticks are sorted by their frequency into the bins. The range of frequencies in each bin is about 5 or 6 cycles per second, or 1/4 tone.
It actually matches up sticks, It'll, say for instance, the first stick will roll through and it'll hit up and bam, there it is, shows up in the graph. Then the stick comes off the conveyor belt and goes into one of many bins.
How that whole thing works, how it gets on that belt, and once it reaches a certain hole, it's like this little thing of air, puff of air, kind of shoots it out into the bin where it collects every stick which has identical pitch, and it's pretty amazing. Yeah, I mean, I have to say, actually, one of the most ingenious apparatus that I saw today was actually this. Yeah,
the pitches are paired within a 1/4 tone of each other, and then what you get is you get a pair of sticks that are both weighted the same or as close as possible and pitched within a 1/4 tone of each other.
To put them on the pitch machine and to separate them in boxes by pitch, it's mind-boggling, actually, to think that drumsticks behave, each one behaves that differently, and that the specs are that accounted for in this process.
You know, as a young student, my teacher used to tell me, practice the rudiments a little more leading with the left, because your left hand sounds different than your right. Then I changed the sticks and put the opposite sticks in the opposite hands, and suddenly my right hand sounded different. That was the beginning of thinking, why was there a difference there? It wasn't so much me, it had to be something else. Well, it was the sticks. So for that reason, pitch pairing became one of the first things of importance.
I mean, the pitch is very important because, you know, if the sticks aren't pitched evenly and correctly, it's impossible to play an even single stroke on a surface, you know, whether it be a snare drum, a cymbal, or anything.
They're pitch paired. What that means is that when I pick up a pair of Vic Firth sticks, this one is going to sound identical to this one.
I don't have a pitch that I go for. I like the fact that they sound the same just because that's the way it's going to sound when you hit the drum.
That's something that you hear a lot when you're in the studio, when you're really close miking like a ride cymbal or a hi-hat, and you can actually hear the sound of the stick, you know, when you're playing with the sound of the instrument that you're playing. So the fact that they are in tune, I think, does make a big difference just to the overall vibe.
You can hear a bad pair of sticks in a line, especially when you're trying to blend and balance multiple players. Like in a snare line setting, you have 8, 9, 10 snares, and you can hear the guy who has a bad pair of sticks.
Pitch and weight of the stick are very important to me because in terms of breakbeat drumming, even though it doesn't seem that way, I deal a lot in sort of what I call like dynamic melody. And there's a certain ring, there's a certain tone from a particular breakbeat that I play that I want to achieve. And it's really important to me that the sticks that I use, that they sort of supplement and augment the sound of the particular drum that I'm hitting. And I'm a lifetime Vic Firth user. I love the particular tone that I get out of the stick.
One of the ways that you can fully appreciate a Vic Firth stick is to know the difference between a stick that doesn't sound and feel right to a stick that does sound and feel right. So do your own comparison. Go into a music store, try a pair of Vic Firth sticks, tap them on the counter or on a practice pad, listen to the resonance of the stick, listen to the pitch, see that they're matched, and you'll feel the weight is matched. And then go ahead and try that with another brand and just check the results for yourself.
I have no doubt that the two sticks will sound exactly the same. I'm not so sure that that if you checked out the sticks made by somebody else that you will find that same incredible consistency.
If you got the same pitch sticks in each hand, then it's going to be a true, you can relax and both sides are going to be equal. It's about equality.
And it's very easy to hear if they're not pitched. But, you know, when I get my sticks and they're in the package, it's like I pull them out and they're the same pitch.
And in this final step, it's kind of like, you know, another cup holder in your car. Just like, you thought you had everything, but we put another cup holder in. I mean, this thing is amazing. They actually go through and make sure that the colors of the sticks are similar.
This is where the human factor comes back in. They're visually paired for aesthetic purposes.
What you get is a pair of sticks that belong together.
There are things that machines can't do. Verifying aspects of wood grain and which pieces of wood dowel will make a better drumstick than the other.
I watched it, and it was amazing how they all stood there, and they packaged these sticks up, and they, you know, made sure that they was perfect. And you know, this is where you get the perfect pair.
Each pair of sticks belong together. You know, perfect pair.
The very refined sense of detail right to the very end with the Vic Firth sticks.
That quality control level is incredible, and you know, I look at drumsticks completely different than I did yesterday. I know that.
The end process was just making this stick look appealing, making it look like, you know, I need to have that. Having our swagger on it, basically. Like I've been saying all day, you know, Vic Firth, we have a swagger, and this is it.
When you get a brick of the sticks, when you get a package of them, we call them bricks, you get 3 different varieties of them.
Some people like a slightly lighter 5A. Other guys like a slightly heavier 5A. You can go to the store and go through various pairs of 5As, pick the pair that feel good to you, but know that they're going to be perfectly matched in density and weight.
So by bricking the sticks with various weights, from light to medium to heavy, you have the opportunity to pick your desired weight.
But the longer you play, your attitude changes. You know, you have to sort of, you know, you might want lighter sticks for certain things and heavier sticks for other things, and Vic can accommodate that for me. And they just keep on getting better and better.
You know, you consider the various instruments. You take a clarinet, you take away his reed, he's got nothing. You take a violin, you take away the strings, or you take away the bow, he's got nothing. You take a drummer, you remove the sticks, he has nothing.
The vital importance of the stick, it's really the first link outside of your body that then plays the instrument. The instrument really is you, what goes on in your mind and in your heart, and then how your body moves. But then the first step in making the sound audible, that people hear what's going on inside, is the drumstick.
The sticks are not a tool, they're part of the musical instrument, the exhibitor of what makes the music.
And I think probably the best way I could put it, I really saw the drumstick as an instrument rather than just a tool. And it was very impressive.
I've gotten to the point now after going to this factory tour, like, I'm going to feel really bad about breaking a pair of sticks. Like, this was a beautiful pair of sticks.
It's finally occurred to me that drumsticks as well, that's your signature on the kit, because you can't pull that sound out of a cymbal unless you have the proper stick. So I've been spoiled all these these last few years now that I've been with Vic.
A drumstick is not just a drumstick, it's an extension of your hand, and at that point it becomes an extension of your thoughts and an extension of your performance as a musician.
So it really was an extension. It was the thing connecting me to the drums, and I didn't have to adjust what my intent was because of something in the stick that was uncomfortable. You know, the stick was just felt like part of me.
To perform at the highest level of musical achievement, you need sticks made to perfection. The mission of the Vic Firth Company is to lead the world one perfect pair at a time. We hope that by showing you a glimpse into our manufacturing process, you'll agree that nothing should come between you and your drums except Vic.
I had the privilege of hearing and working with some of the greatest artists of the 20th century. As drummers and musicians, we have the same challenges as they did, to make great sounds, phrasing, dynamics, excitement, passion. In other words, produce music that arouses some emotion in the listener. The tool to play our instrument with is the stick. It's as critical as the instrument itself. From your brain to your hands, through the stick to the drum. This is the root of your musical energy. Use it well, use it thoughtfully, use it musically.
Close your eyes, put your mind at ease. Let it flow, set your conscience free. Can you feel the beat move inside your soul? There's no need to fight it, let it take control. Let your body go, move it side to side. Feel the groove, let it come alive. It's a moving force that lives inside the drum. It's the beat of life that calls to everyone. Loving to live in a rhythm world. Oh, because we all live in a rhythm world. Hey, living to give in a rhythm world. Ooh, I want to live in a rhythm world. It's a rhythm world.
'Cause the music is good and the music is nice. It's food for the soul, it's mental spice. Take you to the place that you never been. It's a rhythm world that you never seen. Everybody come in, let me show you my world, my music, my party. It's a rhythm world, it's a party. Move your body, somebody.
Doesn't matter from what place you come. Under the rhythm, we all live as one. Yeah.